The Rockford Files ran for 6 seasons on NBC and made stars of 8 working actors. 2 are still alive in 2026. 6 are buried. 1 left Hollywood for an island in British Columbia and never came back. This is every cast member, then and now, told straight. We start with the man whose face was the show. James Garner played Jim Rockford for 119 episodes, and the trailer at Paradise Cove looked the way it did because of him. Rockford lived in a beaten Malibu mobile home, charged $200 a day plus expenses, kept his pistol in a cookie jar, and almost never used it. Garner refused to play him as a tough guy. He talked his way out of trouble, took the punches when they came, and made a private detective seem like a man you actually knew. He was born James Scott Bumgarner in Norman, Oklahoma, on April 7, 1928. His mother died when he was 5. A stepmother named Wilma beat the 3 Garner brothers and once forced him to wear a dress in public. At 14, during one of the beatings, he choked her to the floor. She left and never returned. He joined the Merchant Marine at 16, served in the Korean War with the U.S. Army, was wounded twice and brought home 2 Purple Hearts. He never finished high school. The Rockford Files made him rich and almost killed him. He performed most of his own stunts. By the end of season 5, he had ulcers, ruined knees, sinus problems, and exhaustion so deep his doctor ordered him off the set. NBC then canceled the show midway through season 6, and Universal Studios sued him for $1.5 million, claiming breach of contract. The lawsuit was filed in January of 1980. That very same day, a stranger struck Garner's car on a Los Angeles freeway, dragged him out, and punched and kicked him at least 16 times. Garner played dead so the beating would stop. The man was charged with felony assault, robbery, and misdemeanor hit and run. What Garner did next changed Hollywood. He sued Universal back. He alleged in court that the studio was using a phrase he made famous, creative accounting, to hide the show's real profits. His contract entitled his company to 37.5% of net profits from reruns and foreign sales. He claimed he had received roughly $250,000 from gross revenues of $119 million. The case ran for 6 years. Universal settled in his favor in April of 1989. Every working actor in the United States benefits from the precedent he set. He had married Lois Clark 14 days after meeting her at a 1956 Adlai Stevenson rally. The marriage lasted 58 years. Police found him dead in his Brentwood home on the evening of July 19, 2014, of a heart attack caused by coronary artery disease. He was 86. He had been in failing health since a stroke in 2008. Tom Selleck called him a mentor. Sally Field called him a diamond. Jim Rockford spent 6 seasons getting out of jams 100 times less dangerous than the ones the writers gave him. The actor who played him got beaten worse on a real Los Angeles freeway than Rockford ever did on screen, and then he sued the studio that wrote the scripts and won. The second name on this list was the show's secret weapon. Stuart Margolin played Evelyn Angel Martin in 37 episodes, and Angel was a coward. He sweated through his shirts. He sold out his only friend at the first sign of pressure. He arrived at Rockford's trailer with schemes that always seemed brilliant for about 4 minutes before they exploded. Garner himself once wrote that he could not understand why Rockford liked Angel so much, but the affection on screen was real, and it was Margolin's doing. Margolin was born January 31, 1940, in Davenport, Iowa, and raised in Dallas. He described his own childhood, in his own words, as that of a young hoodlum. He was expelled from public schools in Texas. His parents sent him to a boarding school in Tennessee. He graduated from South Oak Cliff High School in suburban Dallas in 1958. Here is the part the audience never knew. Margolin met his wife in a Dallas courtroom. He was a juvenile defendant. Patricia Dunn was working in the peer justice system that supervised young offenders. The Mountain Messenger obituary published after his death described her more bluntly as his parole officer. Either version is the same story. The actor who would one day play a career criminal had been one as a kid, and he married the woman who once held legal authority over him. They stayed married for 40 years. He won the Primetime Emmy for Outstanding Supporting Actor in a drama series in 1979 and again in 1980, becoming one of only 5 actors in history to win that award twice for the same role. He raised 3 stepchildren, actor Max Martini, costume designer Michelle Martini, and director Christopher Martini, and lived for 22 years in a farmhouse on Salt Spring Island, off the coast of British Columbia. He was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2012. He hid it from the public for 10 years. He kept directing. He kept acting. He moved to Staunton, Virginia, in his final years to be closer to the University of Virginia Medical Center. He died at the age of 82 on December 12, 2022. His wife, his stepson Max, and his stepson Christopher were holding his hands when he went. Angel Martin lied for a living and never paid for any of it. The actor behind him stopped lying the day he met the girl in the Dallas courtroom and spent the next 4 decades being the most loyal man on every set he worked. If that one hit, drop a comment with the cast member from any classic show whose real story shocked you the most. The ones still to come are darker than Angel. Third on the list is the man who played the dad. Noah Beery Jr. was Rocky Rockford for 118 episodes. Every episode the show ever produced except the pilot, where the role belonged to Robert Donnelly. Rocky was a retired truck driver who worried about his son and tried to get him to come home for dinner. The on-screen relationship felt like blood, even though Beery was only 15 years older than Garner. Rocky was the dad you wanted in a show full of cynical cops and bent lawyers. Born in New York City on August 10, 1913, Beery picked up the nickname Pidge from George M. Cohan's sister Josie. His father was Noah Beery Sr., one of the most famous screen villains of the silent era. His uncle was Wallace Beery, who briefly held the title of highest-paid actor in the world in 1932. Pidge made his screen debut at age 7 in The Mark of Zorro with Douglas Fairbanks. By 19, he was a working Western actor. His first marriage was to Maxine Jones, the only child of cowboy star Buck Jones. They married in 1940. 2 years later, on the night of November 28, 1942, the Coconut Grove nightclub in Boston caught fire. The blaze killed 492 people in roughly 12 minutes. Buck Jones was one of them. The club's owner, Barney Wilansky, was convicted of involuntary manslaughter and served 4 years. The fire rewrote building safety law in the United States. Beery's wife, Maxine, was 24 years old when her father burned to death in a nightclub. The collision between fictional crime and real tragedy began in his family before the Rockford Files ever existed. He died on November 1, 1994 in Tehachapi, California, of a stroke. He was 81. He is buried at Forest Lawn Memorial Park. The first Rockford Files reunion movie aired weeks later and carried a dedication on screen that said, "This picture is dedicated to the memory of Noah Beery Jr. We love you and miss you, Pidge." Rocky Rockford was the warm presence in a procedural drama. The actor playing him had been a child star in 1920, had outlived 2 generations of Beery family fame, and had married into the worst nightclub fire in American history before he ever heard the name Jim Rockford. Number 4 belongs to Joe Santos. He played Sergeant, later Lieutenant, Dennis Becker for 109 episodes. Becker was the tired LAPD detective who picked up the phone when Rockford called. He ran license plates against orders. He absorbed grief from his lieutenants for keeping the friendship alive. Santos played him with a Brooklyn weariness that made every Jimmy sound like a man who had already heard the end of the story. The dynamic was a marriage. They grumbled at each other for 6 seasons and never once stopped trusting each other. Born Joseph John Minieri Jr. in Brooklyn on June 9, 1931, the same day his father died, Santos was raised by a mother named Rose, who sold olive oil and later became a nightclub singer in New York and Havana. She remarried a man named Daniel Santos, and Joe took his stepfather's name. He played football at Fordham University and went briefly semi-pro. He served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. After football, he had no idea what to do with his life until a friend dragged him to an acting class. His friend Al Pacino, whom he met playing softball, got him his first real screen role in The Panic in Needle Park in 1971. He met his wife Maria Montero in Havana in 1958 and married her that same year. The marriage lasted 30 years until her death in 1988. He never remarried. He raised 3 children, Perry, Joey Jr., and Lily, through his career. He suffered a heart attack at his Los Angeles home on Wednesday, March 16, 2016. He was placed on life support at a Santa Monica hospital. He died there 2 days later on March 18, 2016, at the age of 84. He had been quietly battling congestive heart failure for 4 years. His son Perry told the press his father had been a very loving man and a great father. Santos spent his career playing good cops because he looked like one. The single role that surprised everyone came in 2004, when David Chase cast him on The Sopranos as a mob lawyer named Angelo Garip. He played the man who whispered in Tony's ear. He was, finally, the bad guy, on a show that traced its DNA back to the Rockford Files through Chase, who had cut his teeth in the Cherokee Productions writer's room. Sergeant Becker spent 6 seasons standing in front of a chalkboard in a homicide squad room. The actor who played him spent his last years as the consigliere, whispering into the ear of the most famous mob boss in television history. The 5th name belongs to the only original female regular on the show. Gretchen Corbett played attorney Beth Davenport in 33 episodes from 1974 through 1978. Beth was the lawyer who actually showed up. She was Rockford's friend, his attorney, his sometime girlfriend, and the one person who told him the truth when he needed to hear it. Corbett gave her a clipped intelligence that did not exist on television in 1974. Beth Davenport was the first female series regular on a detective show whose career was treated as more serious than her romantic life. She was born August 13, 1945, in Portland, Oregon. Her family helped run the state. She is the great-great-granddaughter of Henry W. Corbett, a U.S. Senator from Oregon and one of its founding businessmen. The town of Corbett, Oregon, is named after him. Her father moved the family to rural Camp Sherman, where she rode a horse 4 miles each way to school. She graduated from the Catlin Gable School and studied drama at Carnegie Mellon University. She made her professional debut at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival, then went to Broadway, where she appeared opposite Julie Harris in 40 Carats and played Joan of Arc at Central Park's Delacorte Theater. Here is the part the show never told. She was one of the last actors signed under the old Universal contract player system. Her contract did not belong to her. It belonged to the studio. At the end of Season 4, Cherokee Productions and Universal got into a dispute over Garner's profit participation, and Corbett's contract became collateral damage. Universal pulled her from the show. Beth Davenport was cut without an on-screen explanation. The character disappeared because 2 corporations were fighting over money. She got her own back. She returned home to Portland. She founded a theater company called the Haven Project, modeled on New York's 52nd Street Project, that runs theater workshops for underprivileged children in the city. She returned as Beth Davenport in 3 of the 1990s reunion movies. She had a notable role opposite Nicolas Cage in the 2021 film Pig. She turned 80 in August of 2025 and continues to act and direct in Oregon. In 2016, she appeared on stage at the Greenbrier Valley Theater in a production of On Golden Pond, opposite her former Rockford co-star Stuart Margolin. Beth Davenport was a corporate lawyer in a Los Angeles television show. The actor who played her returned to the state her family helped build, opened a theater for poor children, and outlived almost everyone who once held a contract over her name. Number 6 is James Luisi. He played Lieutenant Doug Chapman in 23 episodes from Season 3 through Season 6. Where Becker rolled his eyes at Rockford, Chapman threw furniture. He was the high-ranking cop who made it personal. Luisi played him purple-faced and rigid, a man whose blood pressure was always one bad call from a stroke. The chemistry with Garner was a war. Luisi was born in East Harlem on November 2, 1928. He attended St. Francis College in Brooklyn Heights on a basketball scholarship. The Boston Celtics drafted him in the 6th round of the 1951 NBA draft. He served in the U.S. Army during the Korean War. He played 31 games for the Baltimore Bullets in the 1953-54 season, averaging 3 points a game as a 6'2" guard. After basketball, he attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts and turned up on Broadway in Alfie, in Do I Hear a Waltz, and in Bob Fosse's original 1966 production of Sweet Charity. He won a Daytime Emmy in 1976 for playing George Washington in a special called First Lady's Diaries, Martha Washington. He married Georgia Phillips, and the marriage lasted 41 years until his death. They had a daughter named Jamie and 2 grandchildren. Cancer caught up with him on June 7, 2002. He died in Los Angeles at the age of 73 and is buried at Valhalla Memorial Park in North Hollywood. His final Rockford appearance had come 6 years earlier in the 1996 reunion movie Friends and Foul Play. The first film made after the Garner-Universal lawsuit was finally settled, and the franchise could be revived. The lieutenant who screamed at Jim Rockford for 4 seasons had once worn a Boston Celtics jersey at training camp, then won an Emmy for playing the country's first president, then directed plays in the Valley until his body gave out. Television gave him a rage role. The man inside that rage was a basketball player turned founding father turned director. If you are still here, take a second to subscribe. The next 2 cast members include the only original cast member alive at 90 and the man you saw on screen the most who almost no viewer ever knew. Number 7 is alive and in 2026 has the most active calendar of any cast member on this list. Tom Atkins played Lieutenant Alex Deal in 8 episodes of Rockford Files between 1974 and 1977 and reprised the role in 2 reunion films. Deal came before Chapman and worked the same beat, the lieutenant who hated Rockford on principle. Atkins played him quieter than the man who replaced him. Where Louisi exploded, Atkins simmered. He was the cop who would let you finish your sentence and then ruin your week. He was born in Pittsburgh on November 13, 1935. He attended Duquesne University, served in the Navy, and trained at the American Academy of Dramatic Arts in New York. He worked off-Broadway in the late 1960s and made his Broadway debut in David Story's The Changing Room, which won him the 1973 Drama Desk Award for Most Promising Performer. His first film was The Detective in 1968 with Frank Sinatra. A small recurring role on a 1970s detective show became the foundation of one of the longest careers in American horror cinema. He worked with John Carpenter on The Fog and Escape from New York. He starred in Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. He played the regretful father in the wraparound scenes of Creepshow. He played his favorite role of his own life, burned-out homicide detective Ray Cameron, in Night of the Creeps in 1986. Lethal Weapon followed in 1987, with Atkins as Michael Hunsaker, the heroin smuggler whose daughter sets the entire plot in motion. Maniac Cop arrived in 1988 with Atkins as Lieutenant Frank McRae. 3 generations of horror fans know his face. He turned 90 on November 13, 2025. He is married to Janice Lee Rogers and lives in Pittsburgh, where he remains a fixture of the local theater scene, including the one-man show The Chief at the Pittsburgh Public Theater, in which he plays Pittsburgh Steelers founder Art Rooney. He is scheduled to appear at Texas Frightmare Weekend in May of 2026 for a Halloween 3 reunion. He continues to sign autographs and answer fan questions on the convention circuit. Lieutenant Deal appeared in only 8 episodes of Rockford Files. The actor who played him outlived almost the entire cast, became one of the defining faces of 1980s American horror, and at 90 years old is the only original cast member with a public booking schedule. The 8th and final name on this list is the one the audience never quite saw. Luis Delgado played Officer Todd Billings in 43 episodes. More episodes than every cast member except Garner, Beery, and Santos. The role was tiny on purpose. He took messages. He answered phones. He held doors. Delgado was on set every day for a different reason. He was James Garner's stand-in and personal assistant, and the small Billings part kept him on camera while he was already there. Born in 1925 to Spanish parents in Highland Park, Michigan, Delgado grew up the son of a Ford Motors executive. His older sister was actress Adele Mara, who danced in the Xavier Cugat Orchestra and signed a contract with Columbia Pictures at 18. Adele married writer Roy Huggins in 1952. Delgado met James Garner on the set of Maverick in 1957, the first show Huggins ever created, and the 2 men became close friends almost immediately. The friendship lasted 40 years. Here is the part of the family story the show never told. Roy Huggins, who created the Rockford Files and who was Delgado's brother-in-law for 50 years, had joined the American Communist Party in 1939 and left it in 1940. In 1952, he was called before the House Un-American Activities Committee. He testified as a cooperative witness. He named 19 other party members. All 19 had already been named by previous witnesses. The man who created the show that defined Delgado's career, and who hired him to spend the next 40 years standing next to its star, had spent his 30s answering for his political past in a federal hearing room. Delgado married Doris D. Edwards in 1956 and had 2 children before that marriage ended. He later married Barbara Ann Hale. He continued working as Garner's stand-in through Maverick in 1994. He died in Los Angeles on March 24, 1997, at age 71. The cause has not been publicly disclosed. The man with the smallest credited part on the show was the closest person on the set to its star. He stood in for James Garner from 1957 onward and stayed there until his health gave out. The family inside the Garner family. The trailer at Paradise Cove was towed off the lot decades ago. 6 of the 8 people who lived inside it are buried. 2 of them still answer their doors in 2026.